Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance and watched the stars through the main window. He had been in space for 20 years, but had never seen anything like what appeared on his screens that morning. 3 large ships moved toward them from deep space, their hulls shining like crystal in the starlight. The ships were beautiful and strange, unlike anything humans had ever built. Jake called his crew to their stations. Lieutenant Amy Foster ran the communication systems and tried to make contact with the unknown vessels. After several minutes, a voice came through the speakers. It sounded musical and soft, speaking perfect English with a slight accent that reminded Jake of wind chimes. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the voice said. "We are the Zephyrians from the Andromeda sector. We come in peace and friendship. We wish to meet with your leaders and discuss trade between our peoples." Jake felt his heart race with excitement. This was first contact, the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. He quickly sent a message to Earth Command and arranged for the alien ships to meet human representatives at Meridian Station, the largest research facility in the Outer Rim. Commander Lisa Barnes received the news while working in her laboratory on Meridian Station. As head of xenobiology, she would lead the first meetings with the aliens. Lisa had spent her whole career studying the possibility of alien life, and now she would be the first human to actually meet them face to face. The Zephyrians arrived at Meridian Station 3 days later. When they stepped from their ship, Lisa gasped at their appearance. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished crystal. Their movements were graceful and flowing, and when they spoke, their voices created harmony like a small choir singing together. The leader introduced himself as Ambassador Kitharos. He explained that the Zephyrians had been watching human civilization from a distance and were impressed by human creativity and art. They offered to share their advanced medical technology in exchange for rare metals that were common on human worlds but difficult to find in their home region. Lisa found the aliens fascinating. They seemed genuinely interested in human culture, asking many questions about human art, music, and literature. They requested copies of human books and recordings, saying they wanted to learn more about human creativity and emotions. Over the following weeks, the Zephyrians established several small outposts in remote areas of human space. They always chose locations far from major population centers, explaining that their species preferred quiet places for meditation and study. Human officials were happy to accommodate their new allies. The first sign of trouble came when the merchant ship Aurora's Dream failed to arrive at its destination. Captain Roy Mitchell had been transporting rare earth minerals to a Zephyrian outpost when his ship vanished completely. Search teams found no wreckage, no distress signals, and no trace of the crew. Admiral Tony Richards at Earth Defense Command became concerned when a second ship disappeared along the same trade route. The cargo hauler New Horizon had been carrying supplies to human colonies when it simply vanished. The ship's last transmission had been a routine position report, giving no indication of any problems. Dr. Helen Walsh, a specialist in alien psychology, began studying recordings of meetings with the Zephyrians. She noticed something strange about their behavior. While they claimed to be interested in human culture for artistic reasons, they asked very detailed questions about human physical capabilities, reaction times, and survival instincts. Their questions seemed more scientific than cultural. When Admiral Richards requested permission to inspect Zephyrian ships for safety purposes, Ambassador Kitharos politely refused. He explained that their religious beliefs forbade outsiders from entering their sacred vessels. The excuse seemed reasonable, but it made some human officials uncomfortable. Security Chief Ryan Baker decided to investigate the disappearances personally. He took a small, fast ship and followed the trade routes where vessels had vanished. At the coordinates where the Aurora's Dream had last been seen, his sensors detected strange energy signatures that matched neither human nor known Zephyrian technology. The energy readings suggested that something had been there recently, something large enough to capture an entire merchant vessel. Ryan's blood ran cold as he realized what might have happened to the missing ships and their crews. Meanwhile, more ships began disappearing. The transport vessel Golden Star vanished while carrying colonists to a new world. The research ship Discovery went missing during a routine survey mission. Each disappearance followed the same pattern. Normal operations, then complete silence. Lisa Barnes continued her cultural exchanges with the Zephyrians, but she began to notice inconsistencies in their stories. They claimed to come from a peaceful trading civilization, but they showed no interest in actually trading for most human goods. They only wanted rare metals and seemed fascinated by human biological samples. When Lisa asked about their homeworld, the Zephyrians gave vague answers that changed slightly each time. They claimed their society was based on art and philosophy, but their questions about humans focused on physical capabilities and behavioral patterns under stress. Jake Morrison received reports of the missing ships while patrolling the Outer Rim. As an experienced captain, he knew that ships did not simply vanish without reason. Space was dangerous, but modern vessels had multiple backup systems and emergency beacons. For ships to disappear so completely suggested something was actively hunting them. The truth was more terrifying than anyone imagined, and humanity was about to discover that their new alien friends had very different intentions than they claimed. Security Chief Ryan Baker moved his small ship carefully through the asteroid field near the Zephyrian outpost. He had been tracking the missing vessels for weeks, and all the evidence pointed to this location. The outpost looked peaceful from the outside, with its crystal towers gleaming in the light of the nearby star. Ryan used advanced sensors to scan the facility without being detected. What he found made his stomach turn. Hidden beneath the beautiful surface structures were massive, holding cells and transportation bays. The energy signatures matched the readings from where the human ships had vanished. He watched through his scope as Zephyrian workers loaded unconscious humans into strange containment pods. The humans wore the uniforms of the missing ship's crews. They were alive, but seemed to be in some kind of deep sleep. Ryan realized he was looking at the crew of the Aurora's Dream and the other vanished vessels. Ryan carefully recorded everything he saw and transmitted the data back to Earth Command, using an encrypted channel. He watched as the containment pods were loaded onto large Zephyrian transport ships. The ships then departed toward deep space, carrying their human cargo to unknown destinations. Admiral Tony Richards received Ryan's transmission with growing horror. The evidence was clear. The Zephyrians were not peaceful traders, but kidnappers who had been systematically capturing human crews. Richards immediately ordered all trade with the Zephyrians to stop and began assembling a military response. Dr. Amy Foster worked around the clock to decode intercepted Zephyrian communications. The alien language was complex, but she gradually began to understand their true purpose. The communications revealed that humans were being transported to what the Zephyrians called hunting preserves scattered across the galaxy. The decoded messages described humans as particularly valuable prey because of their intelligence and adaptability. Zephyrian nobles paid enormous sums for the chance to hunt humans in carefully designed environments. The preserves ranged from abandoned cities to wilderness planets, each one crafted to provide the ultimate hunting experience. Amy discovered that the Zephyrians belonged to an ancient species that had been hunting intelligent life for over 50,000 years. They had perfected the art of capturing and transporting prey species across vast distances. What humanity had mistaken for first contact was actually a sophisticated scouting operation. Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson led the first rescue mission to locate the human prisoners. Using the data Ryan had gathered, Pete's team tracked the transport ships to a planet in a distant star system. The world was covered in dense forests and had been terraformed to resemble Earth's environment. When Pete's team reached the planet's surface, they found something unexpected. The humans who had been brought there as prey were still alive, and they had organized themselves into resistance groups. Led by former military officer Kelly Price and survival expert Chris Taylor, the captured humans had turned their prison into a fortress. Kelly explained to Pete that the Zephyrians had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated human ingenuity and the will to survive. Instead of being helpless victims, the humans had quickly adapted to their situation and began fighting back against their captors. The hunting preserve had been designed as an urban environment, with abandoned buildings and maze-like streets. The Zephyrians would release small groups of hunters to track down individual humans for sport, but the humans had united, sharing resources and knowledge to turn the hunters into the hunted. Chris Taylor showed Pete the weapons they had improvised. From scavenged materials, they had created traps throughout the city, using the Zephyrians' own hunting tactics against them. Many Zephyrian hunting parties had been eliminated by human resistance fighters who knew the terrain better than their supposed predators. The humans had also been gathering intelligence about their captors. They learned that Zephyrians relied heavily on technology and had little experience with actual combat. When their advanced equipment was damaged or destroyed, the aliens became confused and vulnerable. Pete's rescue team worked with the resistance fighters to plan a larger escape operation. They discovered that the hunting preserve was just one of dozens scattered across the galaxy. Thousands of humans from the missing ships were being held on different worlds, forced to fight for their lives against alien hunters. Dr. Helen Walsh analyzed the psychological profiles of captured Zephyrians and made a disturbing discovery. The aliens viewed hunting intelligent prey as the highest form of art and entertainment. Their entire society was built around the capture and killing of other species for pleasure. The Zephyrians had hunted dozens of civilizations to extinction. Over the millennia, they kept detailed records of each species they had eliminated, treating the information like trophies. Humanity was simply the latest addition to their collection of prey species. Ryan Baker's continued surveillance revealed that the Zephyrian operation was much larger than anyone had imagined. They had established a network of capture points, processing facilities, and hunting preserves across multiple star systems. The organization required the cooperation of other alien species, who served as either allies or additional prey. Admiral Richards realized that humanity faced an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. The Zephyrians were not just hostile aliens, but representatives of a galactic hunting industry that had been operating for thousands of years. Earth itself was likely being evaluated as a potential hunting ground. The intercepted communications revealed that the Zephyrians were planning something called the Great Harvest. The operation would involve the capture of millions of humans from Earth and the colonial worlds. The entire human species would become prey in the largest hunting operation in Zephyrian history. Kelly Price sent a message to Earth through Pete's communication system. Her words were simple, but filled with determination. They wanted to hunt us for sport. They made one mistake. They forgot that humans are the most dangerous prey in the galaxy. We're going to show them what it means to be hunted. The revelation changed everything. Humanity now knew they were facing not just kidnappers, but an entire civilization dedicated to hunting intelligent life. The peaceful first contact had been a lie from the beginning, and now humans had to decide how to respond to an enemy that had turned genocide into entertainment. Intelligence analyst Sarah Miller worked in a secured facility deep beneath Earth's surface, surrounded by screens displaying data from across the galaxy. The information flowing in from rescued humans and intercepted alien communications painted a picture so vast and terrifying that she could barely comprehend its scope. The Zephyrian hunting network was not a recent development, but an ancient institution that had operated for over 50,000 years. Sarah's analysis revealed that they had systematically hunted dozens of intelligent species to complete extinction. The aliens maintained detailed databases of their victims, treating each eliminated civilization like a trophy collection. Sarah, discovered that humanity had stumbled into a galaxy-wide industry dedicated to the capture and hunting of intelligent life. The Zephyrians were not working alone, but led a coalition of predator species that included the brutish Korthani and the technologically advanced Nexari. Together, they controlled hundreds of hunting preserves across multiple star systems. The network operated like a sophisticated business. Wealthy aliens from various species paid enormous sums to hunt exotic prey in carefully designed environments. The hunting preserves were categorized by difficulty level, with more intelligent and adaptable species commanding higher prices from hunters seeking greater challenges. Captain Danny White received orders to investigate reports of missing human colonies from decades past. What he found shocked him to his core. Colonies that had supposedly been lost to natural disasters or equipment failures had actually been harvested by Zephyrian collection teams. The colonists had not died, but had been quietly shipped off to hunting preserves. Danny's investigation revealed that the deception went back generations. Some of the earliest human settlements in distant star systems had been established with Zephyrian guidance, though humans had not realized it at the time. The aliens had been grooming human expansion, directing colonists to worlds that could later be easily harvested. The scope of infiltration was staggering. Zephyrian agents had been placed within human government and military structures for years, providing intelligence about human capabilities and population centers. They had been studying humanity like scientists preparing for an experiment, gathering data for the planned Great Harvest. Engineer Lucy Green found herself trapped on a hunting world called Nexus Prime after her transport ship was captured during a routine supply run. The planet had been designed as a technological maze, with abandoned cities and industrial complexes serving as hunting grounds for aliens who enjoyed urban warfare scenarios. Lucy used her engineering skills to survive in the hostile environment. She quickly learned that the hunting preserve's computer systems were connected to a central network that controlled all Zephyrian operations. Working in secret, she began hacking into their communication systems to gather intelligence. The information Lucy accessed was beyond her worst nightmares. The Zephyrians maintained breeding programs for some species, keeping small populations alive to produce new generations of prey. They had turned the preservation of intelligent life into a farming operation designed to supply their hunting industry. Lucy discovered that Earth itself was scheduled for harvesting within 6 months. The operation would involve simultaneous strikes on major population centers, with millions of humans being captured and distributed to hunting preserves across the galaxy. The planet would then be converted into the largest hunting ground in Zephyrian history. The intelligence Lucy gathered revealed the locations of processing facilities, transport routes, and command centers throughout the hunting network. She transmitted this data to human resistance fighters on other worlds, creating a communication network that the Zephyrians had never anticipated. Sarah Miller coordinated the intelligence coming from multiple sources and began to understand the full structure of the enemy they faced. The Zephyrian hunting network was organized like a military operation, with clear chains of command and specialized units for different aspects of their operations. The capture teams were experts in subduing intelligent prey without causing permanent damage. The transport divisions moved prisoners across vast distances, using ships designed specifically for carrying living cargo. The preserve managers maintained the hunting environments and provided services for wealthy hunters. Most disturbing was the discovery that some alien species served the Zephyrians willingly. These collaborators provided information about potential prey species in exchange for protection from being hunted themselves. They had chosen to serve as scouts and agents rather than risk becoming victims. Captain Danny White's team uncovered evidence that several human exploration missions had been sabotaged by these collaborators. Ships that had been reported lost in space accidents had actually been delivered to Zephyrian collection points. The betrayals had been happening for years without human knowledge. The resistance fighters on various hunting worlds began coordinating their efforts through Lucy's communication network. They shared information about Zephyrian weaknesses, successful tactics, and the locations of other human prisoners. What had started as isolated survival groups was becoming an organized rebellion. Kelly Price, still leading resistance efforts, on the urban hunting preserve, received reports from other worlds that painted a clear picture of Zephyrian vulnerabilities. The aliens were skilled hunters when using their advanced technology, but they had little experience with opponents who could adapt and improvise. The humans on each hunting world had learned to turn their environments against their captors. They created traps using materials found in the preserves, developed weapons from scavenged equipment, and used knowledge of local terrain to ambush hunting parties. The prey had become predators. Sarah Miller's analysis revealed that the Zephyrian network had one critical weakness. They had never faced organized resistance from their prey species. Previous civilizations had been hunted to extinction before. They could coordinate effective countermeasures. Humanity was the first species to discover the network's existence and maintain communication between scattered resistance groups. The intelligence gathered by human prisoners and analysts on Earth revealed the locations of major Zephyrian facilities throughout the galaxy. Sarah created detailed maps showing transport routes, command centers, breeding facilities, and the home worlds of various predator species involved in the hunting network. Lucy Green's hacking efforts provided access to Zephyrian operational schedules and revealed that the Great Harvest was designed to be their greatest achievement. They planned to capture 10% of humanity's population in the initial strikes, with follow-up operations to harvest additional humans over the following years. The Zephyrians viewed humanity as the ultimate prey species because of human adaptability, intelligence, and emotional complexity. They believed that hunting humans would provide the greatest challenge and entertainment value for their wealthy customers. They had no idea that they were about to face the greatest threat their civilization had ever encountered. Admiral Tony. Richards received all the intelligence and began planning humanity's response to the hunting network. The scope of the enemy was vast, but the information provided by brave humans like Lucy Green and Kelly Price had given Earth's military the knowledge they needed to strike back. The hunters were about to discover what it meant to be hunted by the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The news of the Zephyrian threat spread across human space faster than any previous communication in history. Every human world, station, and ship received the same message. Humanity was not alone in the galaxy, and their new neighbors wanted to hunt them for sport. What began as shock and fear quickly transformed into something far more dangerous: cold, calculating rage. Admiral Kevin Ross stood in the command center of Earth's largest military facility, watching as reports flooded in from across human space. Every branch of the military was mobilizing simultaneously. Shipyards that had been building civilian vessels immediately switched to producing warships. Scientists abandoned their research projects to focus on weapons development. Even civilian populations began organizing defense militias. Dr. Nancy Clark worked with teams of engineers and scientists to analyze captured Zephyrian technology. Her laboratory had become the center of humanity's effort to understand their enemies' capabilities and find weaknesses. The work proceeded around the clock, with researchers pushing themselves to exhaustion in their determination to protect their species. Nancy's team discovered that Zephyrian weapons and ships relied heavily on energy-based systems that could be disrupted by specific electromagnetic frequencies. The aliens had never needed to develop defenses against such attacks because their previous prey species had lacked the technological knowledge to exploit these weaknesses. Marine Sergeant Bobby Pierce found himself trapped on a desert hunting world called Karios, where he had been taken after his transport ship was captured. The planet's harsh environment was designed to test the survival skills of prey species, with extreme temperatures and limited water sources creating additional challenges for the humans forced to live there. Bobby used his military training to organize the other human prisoners into an effective fighting force. They established hidden bases in the planet's cave systems and developed tactics specifically designed to counter Zephyrian hunting methods. The aliens had expected desperate, frightened prey, but instead they found disciplined soldiers ready for war. The resistance network that had started on individual hunting worlds began to expand across the galaxy. Bobby established communication links with other hunting preserves, sharing intelligence about Zephyrian weaknesses and coordinating attacks on alien hunting parties. The scattered human prisoners were becoming a unified military force. Dr. Gary Moore made a breakthrough discovery while studying captured Zephyrian equipment. He found that the aliens used neural interfaces to coordinate their complex hunting operations, allowing multiple hunters to share information and tactics in real time. These neural networks were vulnerable to electromagnetic interference that could cause system-wide failures. Gary's team began developing specialized weapons designed to target Zephyrian neural interfaces. The weapons would not only disable individual aliens, but could potentially disrupt entire hunting operations by severing the mental connections that allowed them to work together effectively. Diplomatic Officer Rachel Kim received an unexpected communication from an alien species humanity had never encountered before. The Vellani claimed to be survivors of a civilization that the Zephyrians had supposedly hunted to extinction centuries ago. In reality, small groups had escaped and had been hiding in remote regions of the galaxy ever since. Rachel learned that many species humanity had assumed were extinct actually survived in hidden enclaves scattered throughout the galaxy. These survivors had spent generations developing technologies and tactics to avoid detection by the hunting networks. They possessed knowledge that could help humanity fight back against their common enemy. The Vellani shared information about other surviving species, including the aquatic Nethys and the crystalline Zeldonians. Each group had developed different strategies for survival, from advanced cloaking technology to biological adaptations that made them difficult to track. They offered to share their knowledge with humanity in exchange for protection and alliance. Captain Steve Murphy received orders to modify his ship with the new electromagnetic weapons Dr. Gary Moore had developed. His vessel would be the first in a new class of warships specifically designed to fight Zephyrian forces. The modifications included enhanced shields, improved sensors, and weapons systems that could disable alien neural networks. Steve's crew trained intensively with the new equipment, developing tactics that had never been tested in actual combat. They knew they would be facing an enemy with thousands of years of hunting experience, but they also knew that the Zephyrians had never fought against an organized military force using weapons designed specifically to counter their abilities. The human survivors on hunting worlds continued their coordinated uprising against their captors. Kate Allen, a former soldier who had been captured during a civilian transport mission, led resistance fighters on the jungle world of Verdania. Her team had turned the dense forest environment into a death trap for Zephyrian hunting parties. Kate's fighters used knowledge gained from months of being hunted to predict and counter Zephyrian tactics. They created false trails, set elaborate ambushes, and used improvised explosives to eliminate hunting parties before they could report back to their command centers. The hunters were becoming the hunted. Joe Barnes, a strategic analyst who had been captured along with Kate, coordinated intelligence-gathering efforts across multiple hunting preserves. His work helped resistance fighters share information about Zephyrian weaknesses and develop standardized tactics that could be used effectively on different worlds. The resistance network grew stronger with each successful operation against the Zephyrians. Human prisoners who had initially been terrified victims were transforming into confident warriors who understood their enemy's capabilities and limitations. They began actively hunting Zephyrian forces instead of simply trying to survive. Dr. Linda Davis led a biological warfare research team that was developing weapons specifically designed to target Zephyrian physiology. Her team created viruses that would attack the aliens' crystal-based biological systems while leaving human and other carbon-based life forms unaffected. Linda's viruses were designed to spread through Zephyrian computer networks as well as their biological systems. The weapons would disable their technology while simultaneously affecting their physical health, creating chaos in their hunting operations and command structures. Commander Alex Turner coordinated Earth's planetary defense, preparations for the planned Zephyrian invasion. Every major population center was fortified with the new electromagnetic weapons, and civilian evacuation plans were prepared in case the initial defense failed. Earth would not be taken without a fight. The planet's defense network included orbital platforms armed with weapons designed to disable Zephyrian ships before they could reach the surface. Underground facilities provided protection for key military and civilian personnel, while mobile strike teams prepared to engage any alien forces that managed to land. Humanity's response to the Zephyrian threat was unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. Previous prey species had been hunted as individuals or small groups, but humans were organizing as an entire civilization dedicated to the destruction of their enemies. The Zephyrians had awakened something they could not understand or control. The scattered human resistance fighters continued to send intelligence back to Earth, providing detailed information about Zephyrian operations, weaknesses, and planned activities. This information was used to refine weapons, develop new tactics, and coordinate strikes against the hunting network's most vulnerable points. Admiral Kevin Ross reviewed the latest reports and realized that humanity had reached a turning point. They were no longer victims waiting to be rescued, but an active military force capable of striking back against their enemies. The Zephyrians had made a critical error by underestimating human determination and ingenuity, and they were about to pay the price for that mistake. Operation Reversal began at exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time, with coordinated strikes against Zephyrian facilities across the galaxy. Captain Steve Murphy led a fleet of modified warships through hyperspace toward the first target, a major Zephyrian processing facility in the Centauri sector. His ships carried the new electromagnetic pulse weapons that Dr. Gary Moore had developed specifically to disable alien neural networks. Steve's fleet emerged from hyperspace directly above the Zephyrian facility, catching the aliens completely by surprise. The processing station had been designed to handle captured prey, not defend against military attacks. When the human ships fired their electromagnetic weapons, the entire facility went dark as Zephyrian neural interfaces failed simultaneously. The aliens inside the facility found themselves cut off from their shared consciousness network for the first time in their lives. Without the ability to coordinate through their neural links, the Zephyrians became confused and helpless. They had never learned to function as individuals because their entire society was based on collective thinking. Marine. Sergeant Bobby Pierce received the signal to begin the uprising on Karios just as dawn broke over the desert hunting preserve. He and his team had spent weeks preparing for this moment, creating hidden weapons caches and identifying the locations of all Zephyrian hunting parties on the planet. Bobby's fighters moved with military precision through the desert terrain, using their knowledge of the hunting preserve's layout to ambush isolated Zephyrian groups. The aliens had become comfortable hunting humans in small teams, never expecting their prey to coordinate large-scale counterattacks. The first Zephyrian hunting party was eliminated within minutes of the uprising's start. Bobby's team used improvised explosives to destroy the aliens' vehicles, then picked off the survivors with weapons taken from previous encounters. The hunters found themselves being hunted by opponents who knew the terrain better than they did. Kate Allen led her resistance fighters through the jungles of Verdania in a coordinated assault on the planet's main Zephyrian command center. Her team had been watching the facility for months, learning the patterns of alien patrols and identifying security weaknesses. The jungle environment gave Kate's fighters a significant advantage over their Zephyrian opponents. The aliens relied heavily on their technology to navigate and communicate, but the dense vegetation interfered with their equipment. When the electromagnetic pulse weapons disabled their systems entirely, the Zephyrians became easy targets. Kate's team moved through the facility like shadows, eliminating guards and gathering intelligence about other hunting preserves. They discovered detailed maps showing the locations of dozens of worlds where human prisoners were being held, information that was immediately transmitted to the growing resistance network. Dr. Linda Davis monitored the deployment of her biological weapons from Earth's command center. The viruses she had developed were spreading through Zephyrian computer networks faster than the aliens could contain them. Their ships and equipment began malfunctioning across multiple star systems as the digital plague corrupted their data systems. The biological aspect of Linda's weapons was equally effective. Zephyrians who came into contact with infected systems began experiencing system failures in their crystal-based physiology. Their natural ability to interface with technology was disrupted, leaving them unable to operate their own equipment. Admiral Kevin Ross coordinated the multiple phases of Operation Reversal from Earth's primary command center. Reports flowed in from across the galaxy as human forces struck at Zephyrian facilities simultaneously. The aliens had never faced coordinated attacks on this scale and were completely unprepared for the sudden reversal of their fortunes. The Zephyrian response was chaotic and ineffective. Their command structure had been built around the assumption that they would always be the hunters, never the hunted. When their facilities came under attack, they had no protocols for defensive operations or coordinated military responses. Joe Barnes used his position on the jungle world to coordinate intelligence sharing between different resistance groups. The information network he had helped establish allowed human fighters to warn each other about Zephyrian reinforcements and share successful tactics in real time. The resistance fighters discovered that Zephyrians were most vulnerable when separated from their technology and forced to act as individuals. The aliens had no experience with improvisation or independent thinking, making them easy targets for humans who excelled at adapting to changing circumstances. Captain Danny White led a strike team to liberate a Zephyrian breeding facility where captured humans were being held for future hunting operations. The facility was heavily guarded, but the electromagnetic weapons made short work of the alien defense systems. Danny's team found hundreds of human prisoners who had been kept in suspended animation, awaiting transport to hunting preserves. Liberation of the facility provided valuable intelligence about Zephyrian breeding programs and revealed the locations of similar facilities throughout their territory. The coordinated attacks were succeeding beyond humanity's most optimistic projections. Zephyrian forces across the galaxy found themselves under assault by opponents they had underestimated. The aliens' technological advantages were neutralized by weapons specifically designed to counter their capabilities. Engineer Lucy Green, still trapped on Nexus Prime, used her access to Zephyrian computer systems to support the uprising from within. She fed false information to alien command centers, redirected their communications, and caused critical system failures throughout their network. Lucy's sabotage efforts created confusion among Zephyrian forces who could no longer trust their own information systems. Orders were misdirected, reinforcements were sent to wrong locations, and important intelligence was corrupted or destroyed before it could be acted upon. The hunting preserves that had once been prisons for human captives became death traps for their former guards. Humans who had spent months or years learning to survive in hostile environments used that knowledge to systematically eliminate Zephyrian forces. Commander Alex Turner received reports that the planned Zephyrian invasion of Earth had been completely disrupted. The alien fleet that was supposed to conduct the Great Harvest found their ships malfunctioning and their command structure in chaos. Instead of capturing millions of humans, they were struggling to maintain basic communications. The few Zephyrian ships that managed to reach Earth's solar system encountered defensive forces that had been specifically prepared to counter their capabilities. The orbital defense platforms opened fire with electromagnetic weapons that disabled the alien vessels before they could deploy their capture equipment. Admiral Tony Richards, observing the battle from Earth's command center, watched as Zephyrian invasion ships drifted helplessly through space with their systems offline. The aliens inside were trapped in their own vessels, unable to operate the technology they had always relied upon. The tables had turned completely. In less than 24 hours, the Zephyrians had gone from confident predators to confused prey. Their hunting network was in shambles. Their military forces were scattered and demoralized, and their technological advantages had been neutralized by human ingenuity. Dr. Gary Moore's electromagnetic weapons proved to be devastatingly effective against Zephyrian forces. The aliens' reliance on neural interfaces made them vulnerable to disruption techniques that previous prey species had never possessed. Humanity had found the perfect weapon to use against their would-be hunters. The uprising continued to spread, as more human prisoners were liberated from hunting preserves across the galaxy. Each successful operation provided additional intelligence about Zephyrian weaknesses and revealed new targets for future attacks. The momentum was building toward a final confrontation that would determine the fate of both civilizations. Admiral Frank Lewis commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled as it approached the crystal world of Zenithos, the ancient homeworld of the Zephyrian civilization. Behind him followed ships from every surviving species that had been hunted by the alien predators, creating an alliance force that represented thousands of years of accumulated hatred and desire for justice. The fleet included vessels from the aquatic Nethys, whose ships moved through space like schools of fish, and the crystalline Zeldonians, whose technology had evolved along completely different lines from both human and Zephyrian science. The Vellani contributed stealth ships that could approach enemy positions undetected, while other survivor species provided specialized weapons and tactics. Frank watched through the main viewer as Zenithos grew larger on the screen. The planet's surface was covered with towering crystal cities that had stood for millennia, monuments to a civilization built on the suffering of other species. Those beautiful structures would soon become tombs for the hunters who had terrorized the galaxy for so long. Engineer Tom Rodriguez led teams aboard specialized ships designed to dismantle the hunting network's infrastructure systematically. His vessels carried the tools needed to shut down transport systems, destroy processing facilities, and liberate the remaining hunting preserves scattered across Zephyrian space. Tom's first target was the central control station that coordinated all hunting operations throughout the galaxy. The facility was protected by automated defenses, but the electromagnetic weapons made short work of the Zephyrian technology. Within hours, the entire hunting network was cut off from centralized command. The liberation of hunting preserves proceeded rapidly as Tom's teams worked their way through the Zephyrian territory. Each preserve that was shut down released hundreds or thousands of prisoners from various species, many of whom immediately joined the Alliance forces to help destroy their former captors. Kate Allen found herself leading a mixed force of humans and alien survivors as they assaulted crystal cities on the surface of Zenithos. The urban warfare skills she had developed during her captivity proved invaluable in navigating the complex Zephyrian architecture and eliminating defenders who tried to hide among the crystal formations. The Zephyrians fought desperately to defend their homeworld, but they were completely outmatched by opponents who understood their weaknesses and had weapons specifically designed to counter their abilities. Their neural networks continued to fail under electromagnetic attack, leaving them unable to coordinate effective resistance. Kate's forces moved through the crystal cities methodically, capturing Zephyrian officials and gathering evidence of their crimes against other species. The aliens' own records provided detailed documentation of the hunting operations, including the locations of mass graves where the remains of extinct civilizations had been disposed of. The Zephyrian ruling council, led by the ancient hunter Prime, Thessarian, attempted to negotiate a ceasefire when it became clear that their civilization faced complete destruction. Thessarian had lived for over 10,000 years and had personally overseen the extinction of dozens of intelligent species. The peace offer was transmitted to Earth, where President Carol Johnson reviewed it with her military advisors. The Zephyrians promised to release all remaining prisoners and cease hunting operations in exchange for being allowed to survive as a species. They offered to share their advanced technology and serve as vassals to the human-led alliance. Carol's response was broadcast across the galaxy so that every surviving member of every hunted species could hear it clearly. You have spent 50,000 years treating intelligent life as entertainment. You have turned genocide into sport and extinction into art. There will be no mercy for monsters who prey on children and call it culture. Dr. Ben Phillips worked with xenoarchaeology, teams to preserve Zephyrian technology and cultural artifacts for scientific study. While the alien civilization would be destroyed, their knowledge would be saved to help prevent similar threats from arising in the future. The galaxy needed to understand how such monsters could evolve and thrive for so long. Ben's teams also worked to preserve evidence of the extinct civilizations that the Zephyrians had destroyed. The aliens had kept detailed records of their victims, treating the information like hunting trophies. This data would allow surviving relatives of extinct species to learn about their lost heritage. The systematic dismantling of Zephyrian civilization proceeded with ruthless efficiency. Their ships were captured or destroyed, their facilities were shut down, and their population was tracked down wherever they tried to hide. The hunters who had once terrorized the galaxy found themselves being hunted by forces they could not escape or defeat. Lucy Green finally escaped from Nexus Prime when Tom Rodriguez's Liberation team reached the planet. She immediately joined the engineering efforts to convert former hunting worlds into rehabilitation centers for rescued prisoners. Her intimate knowledge of Zephyrian computer systems proved invaluable in reprogramming their facilities. The hunting preserves were transformed into healing centers where survivors of different species could recover from their trauma and learn to interact peacefully with other civilizations. The same technology that had once been used to create elaborate death traps was repurposed to provide comfortable living spaces and medical care. Bobby Pierce led the final assault on the Zephyrian military command center hidden deep beneath the surface of Zenithos. The facility contained the central computers that had coordinated hunting operations across the galaxy, along with detailed plans for future expansion that would have eventually encompassed every intelligent species in the local galactic cluster. The destruction of the command center marked the effective end of organized Zephyrian resistance. The remaining aliens were scattered across their territory without leadership or coordination, easy targets for the Alliance forces that continued to hunt them down with the same methodical efficiency they had once used against other species. Captain Steve Murphy commanded one of the ships that formed the final blockade around Zenithos, ensuring that no Zephyrians could escape to rebuild their civilization elsewhere. His vessel was equipped with sensors capable of detecting even the smallest escape pods, and his crew had orders to prevent any aliens from leaving the system alive. The blockade was maintained for months as Alliance forces completed their systematic elimination of Zephyrian society. Every crystal city was searched, every underground facility was explored, and every hidden base was discovered and destroyed. The species that had once dominated the galaxy through fear and violence was methodically reduced to extinction. Admiral Frank Lewis stood on the bridge of his flagship as the last Zephyrian stronghold was destroyed by orbital bombardment. The crystal structures that had housed the alien ruling council for millennia collapsed into glittering dust that sparkled in the light of the local star before being scattered by the wind. The Galactic Liberation fleet that emerged from the ashes of the Zephyrian Empire was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Led by humanity but including representatives from dozens of previously thought extinct civilizations, it was dedicated to protecting developing species from any future threats. Jake Morrison, now Admiral of the Liberation Fleet, established protocols for monitoring the galaxy and identifying potential threats before they could develop into hunting operations like the one the Zephyrians had operated. The fleet would serve as guardians, ensuring that no species would ever again face the horror of being hunted for sport. The former hunting worlds became centers of learning and cooperation where different species could interact safely and share knowledge. The technology that had once been used to create elaborate death traps was repurposed to build universities, research centers, and cultural exchange facilities. The galaxy was safer now that the hunters had been hunted to extinction. But the survivors never forgot the lessons they had learned. The universe was a dangerous place where some species viewed others as prey, and only constant vigilance could prevent such horrors from happening again. Humanity had become the ultimate predator, not for sport or entertainment, but to protect the innocent from those who would hunt them.